All right, good evening, everyone who's joining us in person and those that are joining online. Welcome to our final levy listening session. As you may know, if you are looking at your calendar, we've got about 3 weeks from tonight is election day, so November 5th. So it's a great opportunity to ask any of those questions you might have, learn a little bit more about the levy, and engage in some conversation over the next 60 minutes. So I think what we're going to do really quickly before we show the video for those who have not seen it is we'll do some quick introductions. If for those that are at home and listening via the online, we have a little bit different setup in the room tonight. We've got tables with microphones at the tables. So we'll do some quick introductions. If you just let us know your name, if you're a student, maybe what school you go to, and if you're an adult, just your affiliation, and that'd be great. So we'll go ahead and start right over here with our students in attendance this evening. If you could just let us know your name and maybe what school you're at.
Kentwood High School. Great. Good evening, I'm Andre Lakai Taylor and I go to Kentwood High School.
My name is Cooper Carter and I go to Kentwood High School.
Great, thanks for being here.
Okay, I am Patricia. I am a parent of a high school student at Kent Meridian and a community member.
Thanks.
Good evening, Joshua Douglas with the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters and a father of 2 students in the Kent School District.
Great, thanks for being here.
Matt Curving, representative for the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters and a resident of Federal Way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Wesley Holmes, I'm a carpenter apprentice.
Great, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys taking the time to be here this evening. For those that are in person, thank you very much. For those of you online, do we want to do some introductions online? Let's see who we have on there. If you're online, if you just want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please. Okay. You could raise your hand and then maybe we'll call on you. We just have 3. All right. Welcome, Allison, Joe, and Steve. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you'll have an opportunity to unmute and engage in dialogue throughout the evening. All right, go ahead. We're going to get started. We're going to run the video, and that way it'll give some people that maybe haven't seen it a little bit of context about the levy and the capital measure that's coming forth 3 weeks from tonight. So, all right, here we go. Welcome to the 2024 Kent School District Capital Projects and Technology Replacement Levy presentation. This presentation provides facts about why this levy is needed to provide students with safe, maintained school buildings and technology education to prepare students for their futures. This levy will focus on critical or emergent needs for safety, repairs and improvements, and technology education. It's important to know that after December 2024, there is no voter-approved capital funding source. These levy funds will provide a long-range stability for the Kent School District. This $97.8 million levy is roughly 49% less than that of the failed April 2024 levy measure. As you can see, the technology portion of this levy is $24,450,000. 57% of that is directly for education, with 40% for technology infrastructure and 3% for administrative and operational salaries. Again, it is important to note that all levy projects are subject to change based on emergent needs and are subject to approval by the school board. There's critical equipment at or beyond its useful life expectancy, with warranties expiring and failure rates increasing. These include our document cameras and classroom displays used by teachers and students in classrooms every day. You can find a list of all school projects posted on the KSD website. The levy will support students by paying for Microsoft licenses, Canvas, and student information software necessary for the teaching and learning that happens every day in our schools. This levy includes funds for a one-to-one laptop program necessary to prepare students for the 21st century jobs. Our laptops are on a 7-year cycle to ensure we're using taxpayers' dollars efficiently. It also includes training in artificial intelligence and digital literacy for our teachers. We know the importance of cybersecurity and keeping our systems safe from data breaches and our students secure online. This levy provides funds to address rising cybersecurity threats, which is required by our insurance carrier. Currently, some schools lack consistent wireless coverage to support easy access to modern learning with increased network capacity. This levy only funds those schools without coverage. The Capital and Technology Replacement Levy will also cover secure and maintained internet service for student learning, along with classroom voice amplification systems, which are out of warranty, to ensure an effective learning experience for all of our students. Intercom systems are essential to school buildings. This is a life safety issue with over 50% of our intercoms or components failing. Another system that has officially passed its end-of-life date is the uninterruptible power system that provides internet and data services to the entire district. This levy would provide funds to not only increase efficiency, but provide a reliable power source. This levy will also support home internet access for students who do not have it. This is necessary for most secondary students to complete their homework. The projected capital levy expenses are $73,350,000. 61% of that being for critical repairs, only for projects that are emergent or necessary. 31% are addressing health and safety concerns. 8% administrative costs include 5% for contingency funds and 3% for administrative salaries to complete the projects. The capital portion of this levy supports critical projects like the Transportation Refueling Center. We need to bring it up to code because the in-ground fuel tanks are past their useful life. Our central kitchen needs a new emergency generator to keep approximately $1 million in food storage in our freezers from spoiling during a power outage. There are 7 schools that need roof replacements. The average age of these roofs are 30 years old. Please check out the list of school projects on our website to find out which schools are included in this project. 6 of our schools are in dire need of a boiler replacement to keep students and staff warm in the winter. The newest boiler on this list is from 2007, and the oldest boiler is from 1999. All are well past their scheduled replacement date. Our maintenance teams have done a tremendous job maintaining these systems, but it is time to replace them. 31% of the capital portion of this levy focuses on health and safety projects, beginning with fire alarm replacements. There are 4 schools that require replacement due to their age. Emerald Park's alarm is from 1999. Matson Middle School's fire alarm is from 1995. Sawyer Woods alarm is from 1993, and Cedar Heights fire alarm is from 1992. The health and safety of our students and staff is our top priority. One of our high schools has an exterior siding issue that needs repair to keep from causing additional interior damage due to rain and moisture. As you can see from the photo, the Mill Creek Middle School field is and has been unusable after heavy rain. Students are not able to participate in PE or other athletic activities. We are currently working with the City of Kent to address the flooding issues and to provide a field that everyone can use year-round. At Kent Ridge High School, we are currently renting fields from the City of Kent because its baseball and fast pitch field cannot be used and is unsafe for students. With these levy funds, the field will be fixed and modernized for our PE classes, student athletes, and community use. You can see the total amount of the collection for years 2025 through 2027 for both capital and technology projects. It is important to note the district levies a dollar amount, not a rate. So if your property value increases or decreases, the amount the district can collect remains the same. As you know, Washington State has long faced challenges in fully funding education. The state does not provide funds for levy projects, and most school districts are reliant on their communities to bridge that gap. For more information on how schools are funded, please visit our website. A voter-approved levy would mean the projected combined KSD tax rate would drop 61 cents, a decrease of 17% overall. This combined tax rate includes the Educational Programs and Operations Levy passed last November, and our bond debt service, as well as the Capital and Technology Replacement Levy. Please remember to mail your ballot by November 5th. You don't need a stamp. There are drop boxes at all of our local libraries. Thank you for your time to listen to this presentation and be an informed voter. Great, thank you. Let's just dive right in. Do we have questions? Actually, before we have questions, let's do some introductions. We'll start on that end. Gordon, if you want to introduce yourself, your name and your title.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Cook. I'm the Director of Facilities.
My name is Raul Parangal. I'm the Executive Director of Finance.
Hi there, I'm Kyle Olson, Director of Technology.
My name is Brett Scribner. I'm the Assistant Director of Capital Projects.
Dave Buzzard, Executive Director of Operations.
Wade Behringer, Deputy Superintendent. All right, now let's open it up for questions. So if there's anybody in person that has questions, feel free to raise your hand. We'll get mics passed around. There's mics at 3 of the 5 tables. And if there are questions online as well, you can type your questions into the chat, and then they'll be fed to us, and we'll ask the questions and answer the questions from the dais.
And Wade, we did have one community member show up if you want to.
Oh yeah, could you
Just
do
say
us
your
a favor,
name.
just introduce yourself, who you are?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aaron McGruder. I have a daughter going to an elementary school, Pither Lake. So,
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for being here. All right, questions? Do we have questions in person? Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Kervink again. So there was a part of the slideshow there that said there was a massive reduction, and I was wanting to know, how was that? How did we come to that? Was there a study produced, or how are we picking our chickens to make these what we want to fund for?
Yeah. No, great question. I appreciate that. So let me provide some context. So we went out in April of 2023 for a $495 million bond. We spent about 7 or 8 months together with a bond task force, whittling down from $1.2 million in proposed projects all the way down to $495 million. We went out for that bond based on community input and the task force input. That bond failed. So when the bond failed, we knew that we had projects that we needed to take care of. We knew we had the Capital Technology Replacement Levy coming up. And so we went back out in November of 2023 and ran a $192 million Capital Tech Replacement Levy capital measure. That had some strategic projects on it. I wouldn't say nice to haves. They were all things that we had already identified through our state study and survey that we do. And then our maintenance team over the years as they're assessing our facilities and when we need to do certain projects. So we had $192 million in projects, both technology and capital for that levy. That levy failed again at under 50%. We thought, okay, so we survey our community, we find out, why are we failing? What's the needs? What are the needs that we need to be addressing? Several pieces in the community had to do outside of the actual project list. There were things about trust and transparency and wanting to know more details about the projects. Historically, we don't get into real specific projects on our levies because they are things that emerge. So deferred maintenance, things like that, and things that come up over the years that we need to address. But our community wanted more specificity as well as transparency. So we created some more opportunities. We heard some additional pieces around the impact on property taxes from our community as well. Those of you that live in Kent or even in the King County for that matter, property taxes have gone up the last few years until this year. This is the first time we've seen them actually start to drop a little bit, which that had an impact as well on some of our voters. So we went back out in April of 2024 with the exact same amount because there weren't a lot of people asking us to necessarily cut it in half. But they just wanted some more transparency. They wanted us to build trust, which we're still trying to figure out exactly what does that mean in that particular case. But also then work on making sure that we're really clear on the need for the district. That failed horribly, 43%. Went back out to the community. We realized that, okay, we failed 3 capital measures in a row when it comes to capital. And this one is obviously capital and tech. And so we need to do something differently. So we consulted with an outside consultant who supports school districts in capital measures, who does this work for a living, came in and sat down with us, went over all of our data, looked at our survey data, looked at our voting population to see what was who was voting and where that where things were lying in there. What we found is that over 60% of our voters in the last election, April 2024, were 55 and older, and a majority of those were 62 and older. And so we found that we had a lot of our voting public not knowing which way they were voting, but a lot of our voting public probably didn't have kids in the Kent School District. So there might have been not a lot of vested interest in what those projects were, other than the fact that $192 million does have an impact on taxes. And if you're a member of the community and you have a fixed income, or you're living paycheck to paycheck, we need to take that into consideration. So we, based on the consultant and our levy team here looking at some survey information, we chose to cut it in half and just go straight emergent critical needs based on what we knew from all of our projects, going from the $1.2 billion in projects down to 700 million, down to 495 million, which is what we asked for in the bond, down to the 192. And we knew out of that 192, the team could go through and find out exactly what those critical projects were. We knew then that we had boilers and roofs that were either past their life expectancy and we're keeping them held together with our maintenance team, or they would be within the span of the levy, be past their life expectancy and need to be replaced. So that was on the critical repairs and the health and safety piece. And so we chose to cut it by 49% down to $97.8 million and go back out, hoping that the smaller number of projects, being very intentional about it being just the absolute critical repairs, that the tax implication would also be something that would resonate with our voters, that we were trying to make an effort to try to. And again, we know that not everyone's going to be happy. We've already heard that through several of these different sessions about why don't we have HVACs in all of our schools? Why doesn't my school or my kid's school get new playground equipment, or why doesn't it get this or that? We understand that. We totally get that. In our previous 2 levies that failed, November 2023 and the April 2024, again, we had $192 million in there. There was roughly 50-60 million in HVAC systems that we would have put in buildings that needed some of that those pieces. So we are literally down to what we know will break and become the end of life for this particular levy. We also know that we've got to go back out in 2028. I mean, we failed the bond in 2023. We got to go back out for another bond, but we've also figured that we need to spend some time with the community, because 3 failed measures sends a message. There's something going on there, and it might not just be the project list. There might be other things. And so that's why we're doing these levy listening sessions. That's why we've started a group called KSD Together that meets at the last Monday of every single month for the next handful of years, to kind of bring our community into the work that we do. For that exact question is like, to understand, how do we make the decisions we make? How did we come to the project list that we came to? Why these boilers and those roofs and those fields and not those boilers and those roofs and that HVAC and that. So we're trying to create some spaces so we can learn a little bit more. And so we can do a better job, because this community can't, and our districts, and our kids can't, we can't function without levies, unfortunately. The state does not fully fund education, so we have to go to our taxpayers. And so if we can get better about how to go to our taxpayers and what to go to them with, so we're guaranteed that we're not going to have to worry about going back out after fail, after fail, after fail, and putting our taxpayers in those kind of positions, that's what we're going to do. This is a long-winded answer. Yeah.
And just to follow up with that, I just want to make sure that everybody knows in here and online, what we're going at for this one is emergent needs. Don't think that these are just the ones that we are critical today. We've deferred the other 100 projects that need to be done from the original levy in 2023. So the bond in 2024 had a lot of projects on there, that would have given a great, it would have brought our buildings back to standard, what we think it should be. But this is only going to be a very small amount of what the critical needs are, but there's still a ton of deferred maintenance that needs to be done.
All right, we got a couple questions online.
Yep, let me go ahead.
So
I'll read the first one.
Feel free
Yep.
to
This is from
be thinking about things out here as well to ask.
First question's from Joe Riley. Thanks, Joe, for your question. It's been stated that the levy failing will impact the general fund, as emergency projects would have to be funded from the general fund. This has been stated in previous listening sessions and public comments, and also via Citizens for Kent Schools. My question, is it accurate that failing the levy will immediately impact the general fund? If so, why is that the plan rather than using remaining funds from the 2018 levy? It appears there is 60 million remaining in the 2018 levy, including both capital and technology, and another 17 million remaining to be collected. If levies are intended to allow for reprioritization, why wouldn't those emergency projects just come from those levy funds?
I mean, any one of us can answer this one.
So
Who wants to start?
I'll start. I can answer that one. For the past, I think, few years, we have been listening to our community about why do we change a project. So everything that is on the capital side, and I'll let Kyle speak to the technology side, and Brett can definitely get into the nuts and bolts if there's any questions that get down into the weeds. But the remaining fund is already, the remaining capital dollars in the levy are already earmarked for projects. And we want to keep those projects earmarked, because again, if we were to say, okay, we're not going to do that. And again, there are some things, deferred maintenance is a deferred maintenance. I mean, if you take that window that's out there, anybody likes, if there's a window, yes, there are window projects on the levy, and some of those window projects could possibly be deferred because those windows are still in good shape. They're still working. Seals aren't broken. It's not a hazard. So those are things that could be deferred. But what we want to do is we want to make sure our commitment to the community stays intact. When we say we're going to do something, that's intentional and we're going to do it. So that's why we would take the general fund for anything that's on this levy. If it doesn't pass, all the projects on this levy are not on the 2018 levy. So anything on this levy that we're asking for in November, if one of those comes up to be an emergent need and the levy does fail, it would come out of general fund.
I just would like to confirm the fund balances for the 2018 levy. It is true that as of July 24th, the fund balance is about 59.5 million. And there is one more collection, which is more or less about 17 million coming. And to your point, not only that they are earmarked, some of them are in process, meaning like those are committed because there's already a contract that is in place. Now, the number that you see here, the July 24 balance represents checks that has already been paid. But there are contracts that currently exist and the projects are in process. And so anytime soon, we're going to be cutting checks to be able to pay some of those contracts. And again, this is July 24th. We're still closing the books. And so by November, we will have the final number for 23, 24.
Yeah, and thank you, Raul. I'll also add to that, some of these larger projects like the fire alarms and the boilers, they require quite a bit of design ahead of time. And what we like to do is we like to try and get out in front of these projects with the design before a failure, because once we're at a point of failure, it becomes a lot more costly to maintain those systems during the design and bid process, which can usually take right around a year. And for the fire alarms, I think I've mentioned this before, once they're bid, it takes about 10 months for devices to show up once the contractor orders them. So, you know, a lot of times we're looking 2 years ahead. We don't want to wait for a failure.
I'll add just a little bit from the technology side. It's a little bit different. We actually saved a ton of money because of the ECF funds that were allocated during COVID period for one-to-one devices. So we got nearly almost $10 million to do replacements for one-to-one devices. So we actually are sitting fairly well as far as a overflow from the 2018 levy going in. And so for the first year for technology, we wouldn't have a huge impact, right? But those funds catch up to you real quick. Another thing to talk about with the ECF is where a lot of the school districts in Washington State, particularly Washington State, got audited, and they had some very tight, stringent processes around there. We're actually under audit, so there's not actually a guarantee that we're going to actually be able to keep that money. Right now, it's possible that we'll have to pay some or all of it back, right? So there's a little bit of a, we don't know exactly, but for the first year, we would probably be in pretty good shape. But the reason we asked for the money we did, which was $24.4 million, is because we needed all of that money with the projected overflow to be able to accomplish all of the goals that we set forward that have been publicized. So that's kind of the technology side of the capital levy.
I just would like to add, in addition to that, I think the 10 million that you mentioned is an example of those committed funds. So even though we sit on a fund balance, until the audit is concluded, that money is committed. Now, once the audit is concluded, then we could actually talk about how to be able to spend that money and maybe additional projects or new projects.
Okay, the next question was, how much money is left in the 2018 levy? We just answered that, actually 59.5. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So which projects are earmarked from 2018 that are still left to be completed? Well, that's a pretty long list.
Yeah, that is actually on the website.
That's correct.
So if you go to KSD schools, go to levies, and you can pick that information up. It has every single project that is still earmarked that is to be done.
And also, I just would like to just as a reminder, many of you knows how the project works. Just because we collect the money in 2022 or 2023, that the money is going to be spent on that year. Typically, you collect the money, you design, you plan, and then you construct. And so from the time that you collect the money, there is a couple of months or a year delay before you could fully spend them. It is just the nature of the project.
Yeah, and I'll go back to Joe's question here. He was wondering if the levy fails, if it would immediately impact the general fund. And I would say no. The general fund would only be impacted if we suffered a major failure of multiple systems. And although we ask for the money now and we have the project slated to go into design in advance of a failure, we don't anticipate a major failure right away. So I think this first year, maybe 2 years, we would be okay. No promises, but in short, I don't think that it would affect the general fund right away.
Okay, we've got another question from Joe Riley. Thanks again. The question is, thanks for the responses. If the projects from the 2018 levy have earmarked funds, why has the district previously stated that the 2024 levy funds can't be earmarked to the new projects? I believe it's been stated that you can't guarantee any projects because emergencies might come up. Aren't these new projects emergencies? And then shouldn't they be able to be reprioritized in the 2018 projects?
Well, I would say that the 2024 levy is emergent or critical projects. Just because they're emergent or critical doesn't mean they're emergency. That's a little bit about what Brett just said. We foresee and we know that all the projects we have on the 2024 levy are things that will fail or come to the end of their life. There's no doubt about that. They need to be replaced. Now, could any one of them become an emergency? Absolutely. Are we calling them all emergencies? No, not right now. We're calling them emergent and critical needs. So I think there's a distinction there, albeit a small one. There is a distinction there. And again, as Dave said earlier, there may be some things on the 2018 levy project lists that, whether it be, windows or this, not very many, that potentially could, if we really needed to do that, we could do that, but not enough to account for the roughly $32 million that we'd be able to take in the calendar year 25 if the levy passes and have access to those funds. Because as Brett said, spent a lot of that first year doing design work and preparing for all the work that comes in very quickly in year 2 and 3 of collection. Just like Kyle, there might not be an immediate impact on the technology side in year 1, but all the work that you're leaning up to be able to do for year 2 and 3, all of the $24 million technology will be done by the end of year 3. And so just because we're not putting everything forward in the very first year for technology or even on the capital side, doesn't mean that work's not getting done and the money's not needed. You have to front some of that money as you're working through the design process and going into the bid process to contract for year 2 and year 3, where you're spending $20-30 million on that project work. And I think that's the thing is I don't think any of us expect all of our community members to fully understand those processes. In fact, every time I sit here and I listen to my team, I learn more every time as well. And so, because I'm not in the weeds of that, and that's an important piece. And so it's good to understand, it's good to talk through that stuff and share that, for, the lay public person to kind of understand or start to get a feeling for that. Because not everyone lives in the education world, not everyone lives in the finance part of education. So the more we talk about it, the more we're able to share, the more people are able to understand, including those that are in the system every single day as well. Do we have any questions from those that are here, audience?
Yeah, we got some questions. Yeah, grab the mic. Thank you. Just start talking.
Awesome. Hi, as mentioned, my name is Aaron, and I wanted to ask particularly about the $9 million that's earmarked or pointed towards the one-to-one devices, because it's just kind of presumed that that's a goal that we want to be striving for. And I think particularly when you're thinking of elementary education, but also kind of throughout, I would also question both what, number one, I guess I would ask to how much attention has been paid into that as an overall goal, and what is the cutoff age, or should ask if there should be a cutoff age rather than one-to-one devices for every Kent school district person. We could talk more about that. But
yeah, for sure. So I'll talk about that. I'm probably the best to talk about it right here on this panel, right? So we have a teaching and learning department, right? And they adopt curriculum and they adopt different ways to teach, and they provide professional development to our teachers. And so they've decided that one-to-one for learning in this district is super important. As you look around at the districts around us, that's a pretty common thing that has come up. I'll go back a long time. Actually, Kent School District right here pioneered this back in 2007. And I was in a different district, but it actually caught the attention of all the districts around us. I was at a Sumner Bonnie Lake School District back then, and they started with 7th grade and they kind of worked their way up. And it was something that kind of took hold. And the people that do the studies and stuff, they say there's a lot of research around getting devices in the hands of students and that ownership and what have you. As far as, you know, the appropriate ages to do that, based off of the teaching and learning recommendations of this district, and I see that again in other districts around us, one-to-one take home at the secondary level is super important, in part because we have curriculum that is in large part only available now on these devices, right? So if you don't have a device to take home and to be able to do your homework in class and follow along, it's super important. I think you talked about particularly at the elementary school age, right? There are some districts that are not completely one-to-one at the elementary level. And they use carts and they kind of stagger them around, and it makes it, from my peers, more on the operational side, because that's where I'm here operationally. It's a struggle sometimes when, especially during all the different type of state testing, and pushing those out and having the devices available and ready, and the kind of the scheduling of when they have to do that. They have very tight windows and when they have to do the scheduling. So a lot of times they're testing the whole school at the same time, you know. So a lot of times it's around a logistical thing as well as it is just having a device, because at the elementary level, we don't have all of our kids take them home all the time, right? That's not as common. So I don't know if that really answers the question, because I don't know if I can speak to exactly the veracity of the curricular side of it, but operationally, that's what I've been told is it's super important.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right that part of it is like school board and the other department that I probably need to be talking with. But I guess part of the consideration that I want to bring up is that really this levy has been set forth, and we've said this multiple times, in terms of we are focusing on emergent and critical systems. We're focusing on, you know, if we need to replace multiple boilers, you're not promising that within the next 4 years any individual boiler will break, but it makes it extremely likely that one will break. If that one breaks, it becomes significantly more expensive to replace it than if we had just done that earlier. And I guess I would point out that the one-to-one device is completely outside of that, or at least it seems completely outside of that norm. In that if we don't install one-to-one devices, is there a thing that would break that makes it part of this critical emergent need that everything else is being?
Yeah, I mean, I would talk about the fact that we have to do these assessments, right? Like they're mandated. We have to do these, you know, certain assessments. So it becomes very, very difficult to do assessments without the devices that you do assessments on. Paper and pen aren't even an option anymore, right? It's just something. So if you look at our neighboring districts, this is kind of the norm now. Like most districts have a device for students at the elementary level to do these types of assessments, right?
I guess, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I would push back a little bit.
Sure.
In that, from my experience in the Federal Way School District, they might now have one-to-one devices,
Right.
but they haven't for the last 10 years. And for the last 10 years, well, for significantly longer than that, they have been doing these state-based assessments on computer. So you're saying, like, yes, it is harder operationally.
Yeah.
In order to move what was called the cow carts in that, but to move the carts to have the computers, absolutely, and I hear that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is A, not possible to do,
Yeah.
and B, that the $9 million that's allocated is a good use of solving that.
Well, let's talk about the 9 million, because the 9 million, not a dollar goes towards elementaries, right? So if you look at this levy, right, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, and we're talking about taking the secondary devices and making them last longer, up to 7 years. And so we filter those down from the secondary device down to elementary. So when you're talking about like stretching the dollars, which is what we're trying to do, be really good stewards to taxpayers of this community, right? We're talking about making these devices last way longer than any traditional business would even say that they're supposed to. And then in the hands of students, that even seems more crazy, right? One of the reasons that we thought elementary would be a good idea is because when you're talking about mobile devices, what's one of the things that goes bad on a mobile device first? It's the battery, right? So we're talking about having those carts, which we have in the elementary school, because they don't, you know, take them home necessarily. They leave them in the classroom a lot. If they need to pull them out for a couple hours and use them, right, they can do that because the batteries might last for an hour, hour and a half. they're so old that the batteries don't last very long, right? Now, if we had just a few carts, which really wouldn't save us any money in this instance because we have the devices at the secondary level already that we're filtering down. But if we had those devices that now we had to use across all elementaries at all the time to try to do those state assessment, the batteries would not last and they wouldn't be able to be charged in the time frame. So we really think that this plan here is the most cost effective to the district. And that $9 million really is talking about replacing secondary devices. Now, there will be a time when we have to replace some elementary devices, not all elementary devices, because we plan on continuing to filter those devices down and make them last as long as possible. So good question, good statements. Yep.
Did that clarity around this, that 9 million go to secondary? Okay, I figured that. I thought I saw like a reaction of like, okay,
Connection.
that's the connection piece there too. Because I mean, I think that was important.
Should have led with that, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And just a point on that, I oversee distribution services here in the district. And I can tell you that another thing about having that one-to-one capability is curriculum. I'm not in the teaching and learning realm, but I can tell you that my distribution assistant director and his team, I have watched tons and tons and tons of books come into the district, go to the schools, stay at the schools, new curriculum comes in, comes back to the warehouse, gets surplus, goes out. It is a massive restructuring of putting new books and resources in our libraries, in our classrooms. So that one-to-one technology, that takes, and I'm not saying there's different, you know, if it's, is it better than a book? I think it's more accessible than a book.
Other questions?
According to the presentation, only 3% goes for safety and salaries. As a parent of a high school student, I'm concerned what operations would be affected if the levy didn't pass in the safety department.
So I just want to clarify, I think the safety piece is 31%. 31% in safety, so critical repair 60 and 31 in safety, and then I think the 3 was in the administrative contingency salaries for,
that's what it is.
for employees and things like that. Yeah. So back to the safety piece. So obviously, when people think about safety, they might think about other things than maybe what we have on the list. We think about fire alarm system, there's definitely safety there. We think about, people might not think about siding or roofing or the athletic fields as safety. And one of the things that makes those safety concerns is that, you know, like at Mill Creek, we haven't been able to use the field for years. So it's not safe. Even when it does dry out, it's not necessarily safe because of what the floods have done, the floodwaters have done to that space. And as you know, I know you know, Patricia, but working with the city and working on a grant specifically for Mill Creek around that field to address the flooding concerns, not just around Mill Creek, but the entire that area around Mill Creek down off of Central is a big piece. And again, I think our team could have probably gone through and made almost every single one of these critical repairs a safety thing, because you think about boiler coming to the end of its life and it being an emergent thing. I mean, we're dealing with an issue absolutely right now with Scenic Hill.
Correct. And
a heating loop that is broken and it's impacting the school, the main building not to have heat. And so that's an emergency. That's a safety thing, because as the temperatures start to drop, you know, there's no way for us to build up the heat in the building except for throwing 25 space heaters in those classrooms and getting through that. It doesn't work. And so our team is working around the clock to get that addressed ASAP. So it's things like that that are going to come into play that we didn't account for that. We didn't know that was going to happen. That's not something that was on any levy list. It's not even on the current list, and it wasn't even on the bigger list, because those are just things you just don't know are going to happen until they happen. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I think I forgot the second part of that.
No, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
just keep talking.
I have one more question. Well, actually, it's an observation, and I want to say thank you for focusing on technology. I have a high schooler, and I know how frustrating is when the battery dies, when they are about to submit a project, and they lose all the information. So thank you for working on that.
Other questions? All right, grab the mic. Let
We'd
us
love to
know.
hear from our students.
So y'all have cited trust as an issue when it comes to passing levies with voters. And something that I've observed from being in a previous not listening session, but
Board
working
meetings.
like
Board meeting?
board meeting, yes. And listening to multiple members of the Kent Education Association, as well as reading online. But with teachers and with students in this district and voters, parents, there's a lack of trust, not necessarily within the policies that y'all are writing for like the levies and the information you're sending out, but with leadership. I believe might have been like 11, but like a group of unions in Kent has voted no in confidence for President Margel and Superintendent Vela within the school board. And the superintendent's contract was just extended. So that is kind of a larger issue when it comes to trust within and passing levies. So kind of how do we address that aspect of trust? Because like in the general session, multiple people have said that they're gonna vote no if the superintendent and the president stay in power, and clearly their contracts aren't expiring anytime soon. So what can we expect from voters when, the school board isn't necessarily listening to them? Thank you.
No, I appreciate you sharing all that. And I have recognized that you have been at least one board meeting. And I appreciate you being a part of that. It's a unique opportunity for our students to be in those spaces to hear things. So trust is a big thing. And we can't take that lightly. And so trying to figure out what people need to see or hear differently so it shows that we can be trusted is something that we're continually trying to find out. Like what exactly does that mean? So like I know you shared the example of it's the Labor Alliance. There were 8 labor groups that came up and did the vote of no confidence. And there's been not only in the meeting that you were in, but other meetings, people have shared their, concern or frustration or their lack of favor toward either the extension of the contract or the board or any number of things. And I think to build trust, it starts by creating opportunities like this for us to sit up here and be vulnerable, for us to give facts and share information, and to make ourselves available. I can tell you, this is my 21st year in this district. I've been in various roles over those years. And in the last couple of years, we've had more listening sessions, more opportunities for community members to come and share, whether it be their concerns, whether it be their questions, whether they want to come in and tell us what they think and they feel, or if they're coming in to share support. And previously, we hadn't done that before. It was more of the mindset of like, well, we know better than you, don't worry, we got it kind of taken care of. In the last few years, that has started to shift, like we want to hear you. Now, I know part of trust is listening and then maybe responding or doing something that shows that you did genuinely listen or hear me. And we have done that in several instances. Understand that not every time people come to the podium to share a concern or a negative or a comment about something that we're just going to jump and go, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, you guys should totally resign. And I mean, it doesn't always work. And I know you're not expecting that. So I appreciate the question, but there are things that we need to continue to do to build trust. One of those is to continue to engage our community and bring student voice and community voice into the process. So there's a deeper understanding and appreciation for why we do what we do, how we do what we do. And then also for you to share different perspectives, because I'm not a student anymore in this district. I have two students that go to school in Kent School District, but I'm not a student. And their perspective is their sheltered little two-person perspective. But the more we can create space where we've got teachers and employees and community members and parents and business owners and partners that are able to come in and share their experiences with us, good, bad, or indifferent, it allows us to continuously grow and improve. And that's what a good organization does, is learns from its mistakes, makes adjustments, tries to improve to be better and show that they're better for the betterment of the district. So I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to ask that question and to share your experience and want to know, what are we doing? And I've been asking almost in every session that I've led, and I lead a lot of these sessions, is tell us, because if we're not doing things the way that the students and staff and community think we should be doing it, and albeit if it was an overwhelming majority, then we definitely need, but voices are important. I mean, people that show up to meetings like this and share your voice, we have 24,000 students in this district. We represent 20,000 families, speak 138 different languages, and we've got 7 people in the room sharing questions, asking questions, being thoughtful, you know, and 3 people online, and we need more. We need more perspective. Because I don't want to walk out here and go like, oh gosh, we got it all figured out. It's 7 people, they shared their stuff, and now we know what to do. But again, because you are showing up, your 7 voices are representing 20,000 families of kids in this district. And so that's why it's important that we keep listening. And if there are little tweaks and adjustments that we can make to how we do things, then we need to do that. Because our whole purpose, you know, everybody's sitting up here and the other just shy of 4,000 employees in this district is to meet the needs of our students. Plain and simple. There's no other reason we'd need to exist. If we didn't have 24,000 kids sitting in our classrooms, we wouldn't even exist. We wouldn't be here. So we should be doing what we need to do to make sure our kids have the most optimal learning environment, you know, wherever they're at. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to ramble, but I appreciate the question. Trust is a big thing. And again, I ask people, like, give us additional examples of, like, what does it look like to build trust? What can we do differently? So each one of you sitting in this room says, I trust you because of this particular action that you made, or this is what you're doing, because words are just words. We all know that actions speak louder than words. We all know you got to walk your talk. You can't just talk the talk. I mean, that's so true. So the more we know, the better we can do. Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha. Keep talking. Thank you. Thank you for the panel. Thank you. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for everybody that's here. I just want to maybe hopefully bring some context, in my opinion, how I see what's been going down with the Kent School District, the Kent community as of late. We talk about trust/mistrust. But in my opinion, I think the school board, if trust needs to be built, it'd be with them. This group up here have been busting their tail for years to try to get some money for the school district. And we're talking about kids in schools. If you look at the larger community around us, we could just look at King County. Let's do Issaquah. Let's do Bellevue. Let's do Auburn. Let's do Federal Way. Kent was the 5th or 6th largest city in the state.
Fifth.
And all of these languages spoken. We have an amazing demographics here. We need to keep our kids safe. We need to make sure that the siding and the paint isn't chipping off these buildings. We need to make sure the boilers aren't leaking down the hallway or from the ceiling, calling Legionnaire's disease. I mean, there's always these rampant things that could be happening in our schools. So when we want to talk about trust, no disrespect for the trust mantra here, but we're forced, when I say we, the larger community is forced, including these people up here, to ask the community for money to make this happen based on the tax or funding structure from the state. I guarantee you, the people up here are losing sleep over this, right? They're doing everything they can. They're coming up with the best ways. They're going to outside third-party agencies, spending money on that to try to come up with something that's gonna really pique people's interest and bring them in. We gotta take care of our kids. We gotta take care of our schools. And how do we do that? We need to show our community we care about our kids. We gotta show our community we care about our schools. And it's not just putting paint on the walls. It's not just putting carpet on the floors. You know, and in my opinion, the technology thing, I'm still like a stick and rock person, so I would love to have more books in school, but we know we're going in a different direction. And having being a father of a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, you know, their faces are buried in those devices. So if that's the direction we're headed, let's fund that too. Coming from construction portion of this, I think it also benefits people in our community. We talked about this earlier. We could put people to work in our community. We could enhance programs that we already have and build on that. But people who build in their community thrive, bring that community up. So it's, in my opinion, it's a whole, you know, tentacle type of a situation. Once you get your schools where people are comfortable with them, you have a potential to have a more of a thriving community too. When your kids are happy, like, you know, they've got the playground equipment they can do. I mean, these are playground equipment's down at the bottom of the list, like, you know, from what I'm hearing. But my kids go bonkers over a really cool park that's being built in Kent, right? They go to Scenic Hill, and when you brought up Scenic Hill, you know, I'm sure my wife is going to tell me about it because, you know, that's the buzz, and that's unfortunate. You know, I went to Scenic Hill. Let's get that fixed. But all of the schools need the fix. So I brought this up about the trust. I think maybe we could hit the school boards and talk to the school board, the pictures you see up against this wall about trust. And maybe that's a start. I think there's an overdue burden on these folks up here, in my opinion, to create trust based on something that they're forced to do because of a funding situation. I don't know if you can just, you know, I think when people think trust, that it ties to their pocketbook. Like, I'm not going to trust you to give you my money, right? But I think there's a broader, in my opinion, aspect here on the trust component. But once again, I just want to thank you folks up here. And whatever, you know, you need from us, let us know. But you've got our support. You got my support.
I appreciate that. I just really quickly, just on your point about trust. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a lot of buzz. There's a small, very loud group of buzz going on out there, thinking that because there's no trust, that if we keep failing these capital measures, that maybe the board will leave or be recalled, or the superintendent will be fired or will leave, or people will leave. And that's not how it works. I mean, I've been in education for almost 30 years, and it doesn't work quite like that. It might in some places, but in large districts like this, we got a 3-year extension for the superintendent. The board is on 4-year terms. People aren't going anywhere if you keep on burning the district down by failing levies. Only people we're hurting are our kids. And we keep saying that time and time again. I understand. So people have trust issues. I get it. So we need to do better. Okay. But stand beside us. Walk along with us. There are several people out there that are making it their mission to continue to see this fail. And on what? On the backs of our kids. I'm saying this publicly. There's not a listening session I haven't been pretty open and straightforward with. I mean, my wife's a principal in this district. I've been here for 21 years. I was the principal of the most diverse high school in state, Kent Meridian High School, for 11 years. Everything I have is right here in this community. Everything that I work for, I wake up every single day for this community. And there's people out there, they're pissed off at this thing or this thing or this thing. Before you know it, they get everyone all worked up about this stuff, and they think that we're bad, and then we're making stuff up, or we're not being truthful, we're not being honest, we're not being transparent. We're creating these opportunities. We're trying to be better. But I'm telling you, the way to make a statement is not to fail a levy on the backs of our kids. Because when it comes right down to it, and we don't have those funds, we will go to the general fund. It may not be $32 million the first year to the general fund, but it'll be millions of dollars. And what is in the general fund? 85% of our general fund is people. Half our people are teachers. So let's just get real clear about what it means for us to have a failed levy and have to lean into our general fund. It's not about taking programs away. It's about impacting our kids, because half of our employees are teachers, paraeducators, office staff that work in our schools. 3/4 of our employees work in our buildings. The last thing we want to do is impact our schools. So I appreciate, you're exactly right. It's this trust piece. But there is this feeling out there that people think that they know better, that, oh, this is the way to do it. Get rid of the board, get rid of the superintendent, bring in new people. I can tell you right now, people are not going to run to come work in Kent on back-to-back failed levies and capital measures. They're not coming here. People are not going to run to, we've had 2 or 3 different cycles in this district where we have board members running by themselves. They're just literally appointed to the position because no one runs against them. People don't want this work. And the turnover rate in the state of Washington for superintendents is 2.7 years. Every 2.7 years, on average. People are not going to run to Kent if we're going to do this in our community. If we are broken and we are not willing to stand next to each other and fix things together, then we get what we get. And that's unfortunate. But sometimes we have to learn the hard way. I hate that. Been learning the hard way these last 3 capital measures that haven't passed. The blood, sweat, and tears, and the time and the tear and all that kind of stuff is, I mean, it's taxing. It is absolutely taxing. There are people leaving this district because of the lack of support from the community, because of the situation that we're in. This board is not functional the way it needs to be right now. You only have to go to one board meeting to see that. The kids see that. We have work to do. There is no doubt about that. But let's take care of our kids, and then let's work through this together while we're taking care of our schools. Because as you said just right there, again, don't pass levies, jobs, there's no jobs because we're not doing work now on our schools. People aren't going to come live here because property, your home values are going down because now you're not a viable district anymore, because people are looking for like, hey, I want to look for a good district to take my kids to, which is exactly what Kent has always been. Now we're in this patch where people are like, I'm not going to go to Kent, I'm going to go to Renton or Federal Way or Auburn or wherever, or they're pulling their kids and they're putting them in charter schools and private schools. Enrollment's dropping all over the state and will continue to drop over the state. The live birth rate from in the last 5 years, in the next 5 years, is projected to be quite a bit lower than it's ever been before. So enrollment's not going to go up. We have to build a district or rebuild a district so people are like, I want to be here. We can't do that by failing levies. We can't do that by putting 45 kids in a class. That's not going to work either. You know, and I'm not preaching to any one person. I'm more preaching to like anybody out there who wants to listen, because this is it. I just spoke at Covington Chamber last week. I speak about every other week in a space about how important this is. You know, and it's not about, if you want someone gone, there's ways to go about doing that. Failing levies is not how you get rid of people.
That's correct.
That's not how you do it. So I just appreciate everyone coming into this space, being here, listening, asking the questions, tough questions, because it's our job to make you feel like you understand, to make you feel like you've learned something, to make you feel like you can make a good decision when you're out there. And I encourage people after tonight, continue asking questions, continue pushing on us, because that's how we're going to get better. Yeah.
And you know, Dr. Behringer, you're absolutely right. And I'll hit on a couple points, and I know we're past our time. So anybody want to go, I'm here. as well too, for as long as it takes. But I will tell you this, in my 8-year tenure, and Wade's got 2.5 times more time than I am here. The listening sessions years ago, and I'm just going to say this out loud, and I guarantee you, I don't know. It seemed like we talked at our community. We don't do that anymore. That's what this is. I honestly feel that. And I came from the private sector into public education. So I have a totally different viewpoint of what happens when things are broken. But this is different. So those listening sessions years ago, it was 40 minutes. It was a 25 or 30-minute presentation, 10 minutes worth of questions, and out the door. We don't do that anymore. We've been here for an hour. We want to hear from our community. But the thing about it is, you want to talk about trust? Trust is a two-way street. Okay? So you can't say something online, you can't say something in a meeting, and then go somewhere else and say something totally different. If you truly are engaged and you want to be a part of the Kent School District, and you really want the best for those 3 students, I hope you're all 3 students sitting in this boardroom, then bring your tail here or get online and ask the questions that will help this district. Bring some solutions that will bring us together, not divide us. This whole darn country's divided. We don't need it here in Kent. Drop the political crap, drop all the other things, compartmentalize. You don't like me? You don't like Wade? You don't like Israel? You don't like the board? Okay. Make your voice. But every time you vote no on a capital measure, you see those 3 students sitting right there? They might lose heat this winter in their school. The roof might leak. I guarantee you Mill Creek's not playing on their field this year, and they haven't played on their field in decades. So I'll get on my high horse and say, you know what? I'm not going to preach to the choir or anybody else. But I know why I'm here. And I know why I'm going to continue to be here. And I will be here until I'm not going to be here. No one's going to tell me when I'm going to go. I will make that decision because I'm here for those 3 students right there in this community. And it's not about just for kids either. It's for staff and community. Look at this building. Who owns this building? Absolutely, Joshua, you're exactly right. Taxpayers own this building. And that is the one thing I can tell you about why all of this has come down to you're not doing something with the money. You're not being, okay, you know what? You see these gentlemen up here, especially this gentleman right here, Brett Gordon. I guarantee you these 2 gentlemen know more about the 44 properties in this district than I ever will. Because Gordon's been here for 16 years and Brett's been here for 9 or 10 years. And he was our roofer and he was an HVAC technician prior to becoming the director of facilities. We know what our buildings need. We're not asking, this is not a willy-nilly thing of just, hey, you know what? This is what we'd like to have. And trust me, if this fails, just remember all the deferred projects from the 2018 levy are from the 2016 bond projects that didn't pass. So go back to 2016. How many years ago was that? 8? Okay. 8 years of those projects on the deferred list. It's already been 8 years. And it's going to continue to keep going on. This is why the community needs to understand why we're here. We are putting a plan together to get in front of these projects, not to keep trying to play a fireman when the project goes to hell in a handbasket. You know what it costs for a district to do a fire watch for a building for a year? By the time it gets designed and gets devices and get installed, I'm not going to have Brett speak to it tonight, but Kent Lake High School is a firm example of what happened. I implore people to do three things. Check your facts before you agree that you're going to agree with something. Fact check it. Don't just take it off of social media or somebody told you. Fact check it. The people up on this dais in this district, I can tell you, I've been the target of a public records request 4 times a week for the last 2 years. If you truly want to know information, we'll give it to you. We're a public district. It's public information. We don't have the time or I definitely don't have the time. And I know these two gentlemen that I oversee don't have the time to come up with just whatever willy-nilly answer we want to give. So sorry, Wade, and I know we're past our time, but I appreciate you all coming out. I would like to see 2,000 more of our community come out to these meetings. I wish there was a time where these meetings were so large, we'd have to have them in a high school somewhere. Anyway, thank you for coming. We appreciate you and the people online.
Good. All right. Great. Thank you very much.